Deep representative?
Yeah, I mean, we invited Audrey Dixon to attend. I'm not sure if she is or not. But I don't know if we've gotten confirmation as to who from Deep will be representing Deep at this subcommittee level. But as soon as we do, we'll communicate that with Peter and make sure they're on the list.
That sounds good.
Mhm.
Are we good to get going, Peter?
You're all good now. So if you guys want to start, you guys can start whenever.
Well, instead of wasting all our time, it's 2 o'clock. If somebody's late, they're late.
Mhm.
So I guess first off, thanks for your willingness to participate and lend your expertise, in this working group. There's not much more valuable than time. So I'll try to keep things moving along. If we're starting at 2, we're starting at 2. If we're getting off track a little bit, I might say something. All right. But thank you all for all your time and your willingness. I know some of you well and look forward to getting to know everyone else. I certainly think that we have the knowledge, in this group. It's a capable group with the topic of nitrogen. And hopefully we can help the state move it all ahead. So I guess that said, if there's anybody else that this group thinks we should reach out to, who should be part of it, we should invite them and be as inclusive as possible and get all the ideas and on the table. So if anybody knows anybody, please, let us know. And when it's all said and done, we'll hopefully achieve some level of consensus here for our recommendations. So trying to figure out, where to start. I guess, as I understand it, essentially, we've been tasked with advising the legislature on how to balance the costs versus the benefit of nitrogen regulation for on-site systems in Connecticut. While we certainly need to consider the effects of nitrogen on the environment and health, this can't be done in a vacuum. You have to consider the cost. Right now, the cost of housing in this state is among the highest in the country. And we can't make that unnecessarily worse. It was pointed out to me recently by a director of health that the lack of affordable housing is in itself a critical health issue. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but I guess if you sit there and say what would be the worst thing to my health is probably if I didn't have a place to live. We're all pretty spoiled. So we cannot unnecessarily increase the cost of housing with unnecessary and ineffective regulations. If we're going to have regulations, let's make sure they actually accomplish what we want.
Yes, I do.
I've been told over many years, I guess Connecticut has been slow to approve alternative systems. In my experience, when it comes to these emerging technologies, and unfortunately, I probably have more of that experience that I want, it doesn't always pay to be a leader. Massachusetts and Rhode Island have been requiring and approving nitrogen removal systems in certain instances, for many years. When the Mass Test Center and URI started studying these systems, they found that the vast majority were not working as intended. NSF and ANSI standards and certification ultimately have not been predictive of field performance. So now these states have to deal with systems that they approve, but they do not work as required. This is really a mess that we don't want, and we're fortunate to be, following. In the past, I'd say 3 or so years, there's certain new technology that shows significant promise. Real world testing with the EPA and the Mass DEP out at Schuylkill Pond is suggested that there's some technologies coming out now that are really effective at hitting the 90% removal year round. So I think the formation of this working group in Connecticut's look at this now is pretty opportune. So maybe the best way to kick this off would be to take a few minutes and have all of you share your backgrounds more or less as it relates to this committee, so that then we know, maybe who can work on what aspects of this and, go from there. I guess I'm happy to start. And so my name's Dave Potts. I guess formally I'm representing Cowra on this working group. I'm the president, principal scientist for Geomatrix in Old Saybrook. I'm an avid outdoorsman who spends many hours on the waters in Connecticut and the Long Island Sound. I greatly value water quality and all that comes with it. I guess professionally, I've worked the past 30 years as an environmental scientist focusing on groundwater, soils, on-site systems. I'm a licensed subsurface installer in Connecticut. I guess I was in charge of the design and installation for the first passive DPH nitrogen treatment systems in Old Saybrook. I'm responsible for the operation of hundreds of advanced systems, across this country and Canada. And when Suffolk County started up their program, I was on the team that devised and initiated that whole nitrogen program. So I look forward to working with all of you. Who's next? You want to go, Stu?
Yeah, sure. Stuart Fairbank, if you, by way of background, I'm a professional engineer in Connecticut. One of the principals in Angus McDonald, Gary Sharp and Associates here in Old Saybrook. And if you saw my little memo that I sent out a couple of weeks ago was attached to one of our last agendas. You can see some of my thoughts, my background, literally been doing this 40 years. Anything from the small residential stuff up through the DEP permitted systems with pretreatment for specifically nitrogen. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I see both sides of this. Like Dave, I spend an awful lot of my time outside. So I really appreciate the opportunity to do something where we can hopefully come out of this with a balanced approach where we can, come up with regulations that make sense, but at the same time, not handcuff our ability to do things in the state. And, again, I see it every day. We're trying, it's a balancing act on every project that I work on, trying to come up with a way to make sense, not just meet regulations, but make it make sense and make it fit in with the, communities and the environment. So.
All right, how about Greg?
Yeah,
Here you
Greg Mattis, I'll be short. Greg Mattis, my background is environmental science, UConn graduate. So local to the state, born and raised here in the state along the shore, Connecticut River, inland waters, things like that. I am a registered sanitarian. I am, I guess, the representative for a local health department. I've been in public health for the better part of my career, 20 plus years. Prior to public health, I did work for Connecticut DEP, back when it was called DEP, Water Bureau, Planning and Standards. So I have a lot of experience working throughout the waterways, collecting samples, basically been every single lake, river, stream, body of water you can imagine in the state. My public health experience, I do a lot of work with the public, with septic systems in particular, as part of my job. The one thing I see quite a bit are the struggles with funding for septic systems. The current technology we have, wastewater is the last thing a homeowner is thinking about, and especially nowadays when people are thinking about putting food on the table, taking care of their kids, when it comes to repairing a septic system with today's technology, it's a struggle for a lot of folks. So I see it firsthand with many of the people that come through our office looking to do repairs, upgrades to their systems. Anyway, that's a little bit about me. Hopefully I can bring some insight to what we're working on today. So
Thank you. How about you, Mark?
Really asking?
Yep. Let's hear it.
So I'm gonna start off, Stu, I got you 45 years.
No.
So, so the company's Dymar, I'm the principal here. I have been working in wastewater treatment and all sorts of components of wastewater since 1977. When there was actually money floating around and we could get into treatment plants. So I did a lot of large scale treatment plants. throughout the state of Connecticut. So a lot of background in terms of how the large systems work, but also as a company, we do a lot also with DEP, large systems, managing those, managing the systems with operators, designing, implementation, cost, have a very good handle on cost, how operations work. We do a number of audits for a lot of the plants around the state. So I've got a lot of good handle on what works and what doesn't work. Excuse me, what some tell you what's bullshit and what isn't, you know? So, which brings a lot to the table because cost is a balance, and also working with regulators a lot in terms of obviously the time that they have to put in, and in terms of permitting and evaluating regulations. I mean, not just here, some work up in Massachusetts, definitely work in New York, and I get to see a lot of what goes on behind the scenes. And nitrogen is a very key point, no question about it. I've got a lot, I think, to bring to the table with regards to the real world in terms of what works and what doesn't work. And then, trying to put that balance, obviously, between the cost of operations and maintenance and even the cost of, looking down the line, capital repairs. And to your point, homeowners can't be burdened with a lot of what I call a lot of regulations. Like you said, they just want to be able to do their thing at home, but at the same time, have a major concern with regards to environmental impacts, especially, in regards to, how nitrogen affects estuaries and aquatic, areas that are of special concern with regards to, water supply. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. We have been retained by the town of Guilford in terms of looking at impacts of nitrogen on their downtown area. And as a heads up, they've been under order since 1988. And it's only now, and Sonia has been very instrumental in being able to get attention. And we've gone through and done a series of significant groundwater modeling and sampling. And there's no question, there's an issue there, but they're going to address it. So, again, bringing real world and don't ignore it. And nitrogen is a problem, and we've got to be able to address it. And doesn't necessarily mean, though, that one size fits all. And that's the thing that hopefully we can come to the table with the legislators and the folks that actually have to implement this, that you just can't, there's not a magic box. There's different situations, and hopefully we can come to something that works for the community to allow for, housing to expand, but at the same time to protect the environment. And that's where I come from.
Thank you. How about you, Matt?
Hello, everybody. Matt Pollock here with Connecticut DPH. I'm the supervising environmental engineer for the program. So just to let you know that our program actually is not just septic systems. We actually approve all public pools in Connecticut, all human remains structures, and private burial grounds, crematories. In addition to, we're in charge of regulating the campgrounds. So yeah, we've got a full plate here. As far as my background, I've been doing this septics for about over 25 years now. So I've seen a statewide perspective, and I'm looking forward to sharing with the group kind of the state's perspective as to why we came about with what we did as far as our first go around with the requirements for over 10,000, which obviously included the nitrogen. So I can give you some of my perspective and experience as to why we went the direction we did, but I am definitely willing to listen to, more ideas and other information. And the only other thing that I want to add is, and I liked how Mark talked about some of the systems. I know he's in charge of doing compliance for a lot of these deep systems. And one of the things we asked for many years from deep, and maybe Mark might be able to accommodate us, is actual data of these groundwater wells downstream of some of their systems to actually see real world performance, like what is going on there. And one of the things that I've always wanted to see is just a conventional system and seeing down gradient wells, monitoring wells and seeing what the nitrogen levels are versus what's being discharged, into the septic tank and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just stuff like that. So it'd be nice to actually see these examples in this committee if we can. So as Dave said, so we can make educated decisions on this. So looking forward to getting my input though. So thank you, folks.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Alicia?
Hey, everybody. I'm sorry that I don't have my camera on, but I'm having some bandwidth issues. And you guys will freeze. I will freeze if I have my camera on at this point. You guys are all making me feel young with how long you're doing this, and that doesn't happen to me often these days. So I'm the executive director of Rivers Alliance of Connecticut. I do mainly policy advocacy and education. I do have a science background, but I rely a lot, really heavily on people like you all that are doing things on the ground, that are doing the science, so that we can make policy decision based on science and what will actually work. I am very process oriented. I blame that on my time in the military when TQM and TQT was really big, but it also gave me a low tolerance for bull crap red tape. So what I want to see here is for the state to meet its water quality goals, its public health goals, its environmental goals, and do it in a way that the agencies are working together to come up with processes that work both on the development side and that can improve water quality. And as we are facing the challenges of climate change with a lot of what we're seeing now with blue-green algal blooms in our lakes and water quality issues throughout the state, this becomes a huge economic issue, right? When you can't use the water. So we want to make sure that we are safeguarding our waters so that in the future, any development we doesn't crash because we don't have clean water to drink or play in. That's why I'm here, and also to learn from you all. So good to meet you all.
Great, thank you. Jim?
Hey, everybody. Jim Paris. I am one of the co-chairs of the Sewage Disposal Working Group and CEO of the Home Builders and Remodelers Association of Connecticut. I'm a licensed attorney and lobbyist and was one of the folks working with the Majority Leader's office to draft the statute that created this working group. I probably have the least amount of relevant experience here in this room today pertaining to the work that this subgroup will be doing. But, I obviously acknowledge the importance of the work. I thank everybody for being here today. I've been on my share of working groups and committees, having been around in and around state government for nearly 30 years now. And I know how time consuming and labor intensive this stuff can be. But I also know how important the work before you guys is, and want to thank David for the work you will be doing and this working group for engaging in this process and helping us come to a consensus on nitrogen limits and nitrogen regulation in general, and having a robust set of recommendations at the end that will result in positive change, both for ensuring the health of the environment and the public health of the Connecticut residents, but also ensuring that regulations are predictable, understandable, and reasonably applicable to development and help with housing production rather than hinder it. in a positive way. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on that wants to say anything? All right, hearing none. So I guess the next step in this agenda is discuss subcommittee goals and establish parameters based on time and priorities. So I kind of look at this, practically speaking. I guess this all started with what Matt, I'll say Matt proposed. That's probably not fair, but you know, taking that and saying, well, what does everybody think of that would be one of the tasks as far as I'm concerned. What do you guys think? Is that a reasonable starting point?
I think it makes a lot of sense, David.
So I mean, I just want to focus it so we're not chasing our tail and rabbit holes everywhere. So if we were, I think starting on that, you know, Stu took a shot at basically what Matt did, but he converted it more over to, I'll say what, Stu, pounds per acre approach instead
Basically,
of,
a per acre approach. And it was a melding of both the DEP and, you know, the DPH regulations, trying to make some sense out of all the niggly little day-to-day problems that we run into with these regulatory thresholds and, you know, arbitrary sizing of septic systems. And this goes back to also discussions with the legislative leaders about affordable housing and housing in general. And every time we end up with, we hit one of these thresholds, whether it's 5,000, 7,500, 10,000, wherever we land with a recommendation for you know, a DEP threshold or whatever we want to call it, that it or it has in the past at least produced these subdivisions that otherwise wouldn't come about, and we end up wasting a bunch of property in the context of efficiency of development. You know, obviously property isn't wasted, it's always a relative thing, but in terms of efficiency of development, as soon as we start subdividing, we introduce all kinds of regulatory setbacks, both on the local and at the state level. And there's a lot of nuance here, and that's another thing, you know, should once we go through all of this to try to make sense of the regulations, should it also make sense that local land use agencies should dig back in after we've gone through it with DPH or DEP or anybody else? You know, should local land use agencies then have another shot at it? Because that's created chaos. And, you know, again, it's most commonly used in larger developments, denser developments, and they tend to be things like the affordable housing proposals. And again, this is a circle back to how this all came to be. You know, that was the original discussions with the legislature were centered on affordability. So I think what Dave said in a nutshell, I tried to make sense of the existing regulations, keeping in mind too that we have a finite time frame here. I was looking at the time frames, and I think we were saying we were going to have during November, we would have our preliminary, as a subcommittee, preliminary recommendations. And you know, it makes sense because by the beginning of February, we're supposed to have a final report as a group, and we have to have time for everybody else to review and, you know, make sense of it. So is it, you know, I think we should dig into it, get as much information as we can, but we may be time limited, and it may make sense to look at it from the perspective of what we have and how can we improve on that, from the perspective of what they were asking us to do, what the objective of the legislature was when they said, take a look at this.
so in terms of, if we start with kind of that approach, I don't know, does everybody think we're gonna get on to stuff like AT technologies and all of that, or do we get through this first task of what's the methodology? And then, I mean, that's really it's really a whole nother task, isn't it? Well, from my perspective.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we gotta just handle how we're going to say how much nitrogen is being, let's say, produced on a property first, and then the remedies, which would be in some
Yeah.
cases dilution or treatment.
Yes. So Matt, yeah, so I just to echo part of what Dave just said, maybe the AT solution is an add-on to what, what the other core regulations are. But I think, just to go back, I think if I interpreted the proposed regulations correctly, those were proposing, was it 1,635 gallons per acre? Was that how that one worked out?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you're talking
I think I worked back through
Yeah.
what the proposed numbers were. I think it was 16 something.
I think so.
I'm just
and-
throwing that out there as a baseline, so everybody
Sure,
understands.
and that was the simplistic formula for everybody.
Yeah.
Anybody
Oh, yeah.
that was over, let's say, I think we originally proposed 5,000, but it may be bumped up to 75 to 10.
Yeah.
That's going to fall into that category. Yeah, that sounds right. I
Yeah.
know it was very, very generous.
Yeah, so, I'm just throwing that out just so everybody knows kind of where we were, where we were starting from,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know, as a baseline.
So then I wonder, so if we take that approach, and then the other thing that I look at is we're gonna stick with, I'm just gonna say, kind of the methodology that we've moved with so far. Is that when we look at the DEP data for the monitoring wells on the sites, or, and Mark, you might have some thoughts, because really the question I have is, one, what do we all think about, not what you did, Matt, but what's the best way forward based on how we've been doing it? I guess that's the way. But part of that question is, how has it been working? Right? If every single monitoring well is at 2 milligrams per liter, and that's background, well, that ought to factor into this. But if every monitoring well is at 20, that ought to factor into this. Does everybody else see it that way?
No. I'm sorry, guys. You're trying to do work at the same time that, folks coming in, but I heard you're talking about monitoring wells in
Yeah.
terms of what the results are. I will tell you, I've been doing this a long time. Most of those monitoring wells are well below. I have not had a situation on any monitoring over the last 20 years where I've had any issues with nitrogen. In fact, what I have found, the DEP process is so conservative that is
That's
probably
what we-
one of the reasons why. I've probably been involved in probably 4 or 5 appeals by other outside through a intervener or whatever, in which always comes down to this: you guys are going to screw up, you're not going to have the well, you're going to have problems. And I can tell you, historically, where most people try to get you is on the treatment plant side. Well, the treatment plant is not the end goal. I mean, you want to get certain levels of treatment, but the end goal is the point of concern, and it's those monitoring wells.
Yeah.
And they keep forgetting that that's the key. If you fail there, then you failed.
Yeah.
So through all my history, I did a lot of, this is going years back, because when you're trying to prepare for any kind of intervener, you want to get your background information. And in evaluating a lot of the projects that we did, the monitoring well situations were never an issue.
The only ones I've ever seen, Mark, are when you cite a monitoring well within a few feet, meaning, or even I've seen monitoring wells through the systems.
We've done that on a lot of our projects because I want to collect data to see how well things work. So inside the system, absolutely, you're going to have higher levels, and that's anticipated.
Of course.
Then you want to see what the treatment is at the point of concern, whether it's a property line or near a wetlands or a water course or whatever. You find that those levels drop significantly.
Within 10 feet is what I see.
Well, yeah, it's not so, and I get where Matt's coming from. Yes. Now, the biggest areas of concern are where you have situations, and you guys know about all these, is that some of these campsites or some of these areas that you put out, that people have turned what was used to be a, seasonal use, and now they're all these, those are the areas that are problems. I've got one now, and the town keeps allowing things to happen again. And yeah, there's problems with some of their wells because you're putting wells closer, even 75 feet away in an environment that has really poor soils and close to a lake. I don't care. You're going to end up with issues. And so that's part of one of the things that through this whole process, I'm hopeful that things get tighter on those kinds of, and DEP does get involved, but not to the extent that, where they can come after towns and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, that's what happens, is that towns, some are more liberal than others, and they really are just looking to satisfy a homeowner. And we have to deal with it later. So, but for the most part, any of these larger systems, and I'm sure, Stu, you've had some of that experience too, that most of these larger systems don't, those monitoring wells, I'm not seeing any significant issues in probably 95% of the cases, so.
And you might get a blip one month and then nothing for quite
But-
some time.
Right, but that's why the state looks at it on the average annual basis,
Yeah,
and they
rolling
should,
basis.
because you do have seasonal, and I look at it from a pound standpoint, and that's another thing. The whole thing with milligrams per liter on this is just a concentration level.
Yeah.
You got to really look at it in terms of pounds of impact to something.
So the deep has hard data on all these well test sites, right? So
Yes, they do.
it sounds like rather than talk about anecdotal sort of scenarios that are all that you guys have all seem to agree on, it would be great for us to be able to get our hands on that data and to review it, to understand it. It sounds to me like what you guys are saying, that the state is under a regulatory regime of over-regulation in most instances. If you're saying that these test sites are coming up with lower than expected levels of nitrogen, then that's something to really dig into as well, right? Am I mistaking what you guys are saying, or is that the genesis of the conversation so far?
What I would be telling you is that I wouldn't be changing anything. And the reason why is because it's like anybody, you go build a building, you do a steel beam. Why do you have a two factor of safety? It's because things aren't perfect, even in construction. And as much as, you look at an analysis, the analysis has to be of at least have a factor of safety in there enough so that we don't create problems. And I've never disagreed with how things get modeled for nitrogen on a well, because that all comes down to, I hate to say it's dilution by solution. Okay. Solution by dilution, rather, is that's how it happens. But, there are more, the best thing that the state did was look at things on an average annual basis, not on these peak numbers, because things do happen, but on an annual load basis, they're right on. And I wouldn't change a damn thing in that regime, because you're talking, that is really the well is really the test. And if you start screwing around with that system of how they do it, then I think you're going to ask yourself for trouble.
So do we ask the DEP for the data so we have that to support us?
Yeah, I have some data that I can pull together, but I hate to tell you that if you're really trying to do this, it's you have to go to the state level. You have to request for the project, get the project number, go through their DMRs, and look at the historical basis. That's that's the real way to do it. And that takes time. That really,
I saw Matt smiling and
Mhm.
I think he might have tried that and
Oh, yes. We asked for this decades ago. And I'm telling you that I even begged them just for one site. Just give me one site. And we never got it. It's my understanding that some of that data just is like nobody even monitors it and they don't even know where it is or where things are. I probably shouldn't speculate that much, but that's kind of the impression I got when I asked for this stuff. Because I mean, for us, if you ask me for a file on us, I go to the file cabinet here, I open it up, and I pull the file out by town. I don't think they have something like that. They don't have anything.
no, they do, Matt. They really
do?
do. Every
Then maybe they're
single
lying to me.
job, every
Okay.
single permit, it's got a permit number and a folder and a file. The
Okay.
problem is that some of that stuff, because of the way they have their, their filing system, you've got to, you got to put the request in, then they got to pull the documents, and then you can go through it. But I will tell you on the DMRs, that is probably some of the harder things to get, only because that all that information is not held at their main office, because there's so many of them and there's so much. You're talking there's tons and tons of that data. Some of that data is actually off-site someplace else. So I've been through it and it is frustrating. The information is there. And to your point, yes, there are facilities out there that don't necessarily file.
Well,
They don't.
maybe
Sounds to me like
having
we're gonna have
the-
to get, if you go to Massachusetts, you file there, I mean, we could ask them, what is the average concentration leaving all your sites? And they could give you that answer with the click of a mouse, right? The Mass Test Center has put together a program
Yeah,
to track
yeah.
everything. And what we need to maybe be doing is telling the DEP or telling the legislature to tell the DEP, you're gonna get this done and this is what you're gonna give us. So if we want some data, can't we tell them, Jim, this is what we want?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, first of all, we can. I think that could very well be a recommendation of this group, right? That the Deep maybe regularly report on a yearly basis on the data they do have, and that could be something that's open to the public for review, including this working group if this lives beyond February. But yeah, I'm. It sounds to me, though, it would be a yeoman's task to even have them, aggregate the data and provide it in a presentable manner to this group in short order, right? It almost sounds like it can't even be done, and maybe it can, but we have a finite time to work and to get our recommendations done. Hey, at the end of the day, it could be the recommendation of this group that, regulations are frozen until we have this information to review. I don't know. Like it's, so it's, I think, David, we were talking about discussing committee goals. I think you might want to kind of hone us back in, really identify, what those goals are, what the parameters are, if we can, and then kind of work our way through. I mean, we really only have about 20 minutes here, I suppose, maybe a little longer if people want to stick around. But we might want to kind of set ourselves up for continued conversations and expectations for how to prepare for our next meeting.
Yep,
So
no, that
just
sounds
just a
good.
thought.
But I mean, one of the goals could be though, to ask the DEP what they can give us. That's what I wouldn't say they can't do it. I don't disagree with anybody. But I would give them the benefit of the doubt and say, this is what we would like. Can you provide it to us, right? And I think our goal ought to be to try to get that data to make science-driven decisions.
Dave,
So-
I think that's a good point. So the thing is you're going to, when you talk to DEP, so you know that they have their DMRs are filed through their e-file system, right?
I do.
That is a problem unto itself. If I were to call up somebody, I said, listen, all I want to do is look at facility such and such, and it's got a facility number of X, right? Try getting that information from them through their e-file system. You can't.
I've
It's
been
not
to-
even, you, because you're not the, you don't have the prescription of the authorization to do that. So part of their problem is if you look at it from a FOIA standpoint, that's how you get that stuff. And that's
Well, you-
bullshit, excuse me,
have
that's
to get-
BS when it comes right down to it, because the public, once that information is filed, a DMR or whatever, that should be easily, at least being able to review it from a standpoint from the state for anybody. And it's impossible to get.
There's no question. I ended up, we did a project for Hawks Nest Beach where we compared the nitrogen flux to the Long
Yeah.
Island Sound. And the proposal was to ship it to New London. So I needed the New London plant,
Yep.
discharge performance. And I ended up at the commissioner's office literally before finally Dennis Greasy agreed to give it to me, as told by the
It's
commissioner. So
very-
it's not, we need to do something. I agree. So let's.
It's very
let's-
hard because they don't have anybody, even when you send it in manually, I don't even know who's logging it in.
So we'll ask them for any data regarding what I guess it would be the monitoring wells, or we call it that, or? would we
Yeah,
say-
the way I would do this is, and Stu, maybe even some of your projects, anybody's got projects out there, get the facility number. That's how the easiest way you're gonna get it. If you just ask them blank, they're not gonna know what.
I think what I would suggest is we say, we would like to have 1% of your sites or 10% of your sites. We'd like you to go through the data and
Yeah.
tell us what the numbers are. Is
Yeah.
that fair, Jim? I mean, a goal of
Yeah.
a recommendation of this committee could certainly be, if we can't get this now, we'd like the DEP to randomly review 10% or whatever it is, so we can make this decision.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And we can reach out, I can reach out, to Deep and find out what, if anything, they can provide in a short-term basis to us.
Good luck. The only reason I say that is because even in this department now, and everybody I think has got experience with them, it's ridiculous the amount of time it's taking even to get a staff person assigned to a project. I'm going to give you a heads up. I put in an application and they know when I put an application and they don't have to go through too much. I sent it in April. I've had Sonia do me a favor, find out and specifically, when am I going to get a staff member assigned to this job? Even to look at it. Next April.
Wow.
1 year.
All right, so what if
You want to talk about a business climate?
How about we talk about what we're gonna do for our meeting schedule?
Yeah, well, your next meeting is already scheduled for October 29th at 1 p.m.
Okay.
All right, well, that's a problem, because I'm in North Dakota, so you guys are gonna have to handle it without me.
Wait, 1 p.m. or 2 p.m.?
I'd have to confirm. Peter, could you tell us, can you confirm that it was October 29th at 1 p.m.?
So what I have scheduled is October 29th for the subgroup from 1 to 2, and then the full working group right after from 2 to 3.
Right.
Okay,
And David, it would probably be prudent right now to attempt to establish a regularly scheduled meeting of this subgroup.
agreed. What, you guys wanna do it the hour before the regular meeting? Does that help or hurt?
Well, so that would be meeting bi-weekly. I assume that this subgroup would want to, at the very least, meet regularly. Well, I guess we would be, right? If we meet on the 29th would be the next meeting date of the full working group. But thereafter, we'd still want to be, as a subgroup, I think, at the very least, meeting weekly.
Well, let me ask this question. Would you guys rather put in a 2-hour block or 1-hour blocks each week?
Oof. It's hard sometimes. It all depends on how it fits into a schedule, you
Oh,
know?
I know, I'm in the same boat, but in some respects, I'd rather dig in and get this done and be done with it than. I damn near rather put in a day and be done with this than I would all get
So
together
if
and,
you had a work session that was basically in a very specific agenda that was sent out to everybody beforehand so they can think about it. You know, I don't mind myself setting a half a day aside.
Yeah.
As long as I know, because after half a day, my brain's burnt anyways,
yeah, that's a good point.
you
What-
know,
what is the
so.
other thing?
But I think you need the agenda to that point and what you specifically want to accomplish in that 4 hour period. You know, and just break it down into the parts.
I think, yeah, we're gonna have to do that as
Yeah,
a team.
so you can this part's done, we move on to the next one. So that you
Agreed.
can end up summarizing at the end.
So do we want to all look at what Matt did, look at what Stu did,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, I mean, however, I mean, I'm open to any suggestion you guys have, I mean, but I would make sure if you're, and I don't know that this is broken down yet, but I would think that you've got goals, established parameters, base time, or priorities. To me, it at this point is, what are the subject matters that we want to attack? Whether it's technical, right, legislative, whatever it is, and then just assign that 1 4 hour period to that item. And
Well,
then
right-
get a
right now,
conclusion.
What we all agreed to, I think, was we start with Matt's.
Yeah.
what Matt did, right? And
Yeah.
then Stu's given a slightly different flavor to that same approach. I think, are there any other approaches should be put on the table? If somebody else got another idea, let's hear it. And then let's sit down and work through that. And when we're done with that, perhaps we can come away, with a consensus that, Matt's flavor with Stu's flavor of something else, or whatever we end up with, everybody's comfortable with,
Mhm.
And then really, other than that, we're gonna be maybe moved by data that the DEP probably can't give us, so we're probably not gonna be moved by that data now, right?
Uh,
Yeah, and
I don't know that you're gonna get it.
I was just going to say that, I could talk with Trent offline and see if the majority leader's office might be able to make headway with the deep where we as regular folk may not. So we can strategize about how to get information from deep in a short term basis to help this group along and see if that's feasible. And at least we'll get answers for this group by next week as to the reality of our ability to get information from deep that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, the only other thing, like Stu was just saying, Massachusetts, I did talk to George Hoyfelder, he said he'd be happy to speak with us for an hour or so. If we want to look at how does Massachusetts do it, I think that might be, there is advanced a group, as I've seen, going across the country when it comes to nitrogen. They're science driven, data driven as much as anything. And I think it would be worth asking George, what would you do? Because probably of all people out there, he's the most knowledgeable that I
No,
run.
I agree, Dave.
So maybe if we had this, well, I guess, do we have consensus that we'd like to do one half day as opposed to a bunch of contaminating a bunch of days?
No, this whole aspect of trying to get in an hour, you're just getting momentum and then you're closing shop.
No, I agree. What do you think, Matt?
I'm okay with that. I was just gonna say though, is whenever we set these meetings up, if they could be like sent to us sooner rather than later, because like I have to schedule inspections and things like that. I'm sure all you guys have work to do. So it's like if I want to get that on my calendar so I don't inadvertently schedule something. So if we do anything, which I'm willing to do a half day, that's fine. A Tuesday or Wednesday is usually best for me, but I mean, I'll work around you guys if I have to.
Are we talking about in person, David?
I mean, I'd be happy to do it I mean, we're here at Greg's in Old Saybrook. Anybody that wants to come, Greg, is that,
Absolutely. That's what it's here.
is that so?
I mean, we would have to coordinate with Peter, right, and ensure that there is the capability of televising from Greg's office.
We're on
If
it right
We're
now.
on it right
so
now.
that there is a hybrid model.
Yeah, we're on right now.
Right, right.
So anybody
Can I-
else?
Can I
anybody have a
also
comment on that?
make the suggestion that everybody review and Jim, I'd like to flag this for you as well. The sewage subcommittee that worked with the Connecticut, what was it, the Connecticut the Commission on Connecticut's Development Future. I always get it wrong. But I think it's important for us as well as everyone else that is on this working group to take a look at the recommendations there and see where we are. Because, you know, I'm kind of feeling like this is Groundhog Day all over again because I was on that subcommittee. So, you know, anything that's there, you know, we should be looking at it to say, okay, this has under the purview of this subgroup, has it been done? If it hasn't, we have a recommendation. You know?
That's a great idea, Alicia, for sure. And I believe, David, you served on that subgroup as well, right?
Well, that's what Alicia told me too. I didn't remember, so I'm not gonna be very good at it.
So, yeah, I think, Alicia, if you have the recommendations readily available, if you want to email it to me, and I'll make sure the entire group gets it.
Sir, I tried to put it in the notes, but I
Oh,
don't think it's really working with the access. So I don't know, Peter, if you can see what I had put in the notes and you can send it to the group. If not, I'll find a way to get it out.
Sure.
All right, so do we have consensus on a half a day?
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we shoot for that? When do we want to do that?
Christmas.
Why don't, and I have no say in your scheduling, I'm not appointed, I'm just here on behalf of Representative Rojas. Why don't you guys collect in writing the information that you would like me to try and get from Deep, and then based on when they can turn that around, we schedule? Does that sound like a decent idea to everyone?
I think it might take a little longer. I wouldn't want to get held. Let's meet on what we can, and then if
Okay.
we're surprised and that comes in, or if we actually get good data from them, we'll get together again.
Sure.
So right now I'm good anytime during the week of the 27th. I mean, October 27th.
Well, we had the 29th as a date. We could just meet earlier on the 29th, and then everybody that
If you want me, I'm in North Dakota.
sorry.
I'm running the cell service. But you don't necessarily need me.
I think we kind of did, David.
No,
You want to go the following week?
Sure.
Wednesday the 5th?
I am actually on another legislative working group that's meeting at 10 o'clock that morning.
What's better, morning or afternoon for you guys?
if you want us when we're fresh, it's in the morning, so I have my coffee.
That's how I am. You want to shoot for, we got Thursday, is that, Matt, that's a bad day for you?
Is the 30th?
Yeah.
Can't hear you, Matt.
I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm trying to look at my schedule at the same time. No, Thursday's not actually a bad day, and if I had to, I could come down to Old Saybrook if we have to.
Is
Actually,
that
might
Thursday
work
the
better.
6th?
Yeah, I could do that.
You want to do the 6th and,
The 6th of November?
yep, November?
Oh, man, I'm gonna just have to move a doctor's appointment around because I have a doctor's appointment at 10:30, but I'll see if I can move it
Wanna go to
around.
the 4th? Does the 4th work for everybody?
What now?
Would the 4th of November work?
4th of November works for me.
Works for me.
Good here, let's do that.
David,
It's
it doesn't
election
work for
day.
me,
Of course
but
it's gonna work.
it doesn't work for me, but that shouldn't preclude you guys from meeting. And I can always watch the video afterwards.
So that's
Um,
Tuesday.
The only,
Tuesday,
yeah, the only thing, guys, with that, I'd have to do it in the morning, and I'm on another subcommittee. I'm on the other subcommittee for this group. I have it tentatively for 10 p.m., which I don't want to be difficult here, but that's the only thing that I have that morning.
but we
That
want
would be a
you.
problem.
You
Yeah.
want,
I
you
mean-
want to kick it back a week or no?
Well, what happened to Wednesday the 5th? That was the one you couldn't go?
No, I'm good. I think Alicia might have a
Oh,
conflict.
Alicia had the, okay. Um,
What about Wednesday, November 3rd?
you mean Monday?
Okay.
Monday, November 3rd?
Yeah, Monday, November 3rd, yeah.
Okay, that might work for me. Let me just check.
It would work for me.
Works for me.
I'll come back a day early from North Dakota.
That works for me, Monday.
All right, Monday,
Okay.
Yeah,
what time, 8?
yeah, I'm gonna be, instead of coming to Old Saybrook, I'll be on Zoom if you can still do it. I mean, or you want everybody there?
No,
Okay.
whatever works.
Yeah, I'll just be on Zoom. It's easier for me.
Perfect.
But 8 o'clock we're talking
Eight,
about.
8
Yeah.
o'clock, is that good for everybody?
Well, I'm fine with that, but I'm kind of in the same boat as Mark is. I'm way out west. I mean, I can get there. I'll tell you what. Yes, I'll come there. I'll be in
You guys want to do it 9 to?
No,
9 to
no.
1?
The time is fine. I'm just saying I would be remote, but you know what? I think I like face to face. Let's do 8 o'clock. That's fine. I'm
Or
good.
just call in on your way, Matt. If you're a little late, right? Just
All right. If I'm a little late, but I'll be there for 8.
Greg knows this is really a stealth inspection.
And Peter, that works for your scheduling purposes, Peter?
So I just want to confirm everything. So you guys would like to meet on Monday, November 3rd at 8 to 12, I'm assuming?
Yes.
And then is the meeting on November 29th for the subgroup? Are you guys still planning to meet on that day or is that canceled?
I think it sounds like David's not going to be available for that, so we'll cancel that meeting.
Okay.
Better
Okay.
have coffee that early in the morning, Dave.
Say that again, coffee?
I said you better have coffee that early in the morning.
All right, we'll do that.
And where is this? This is going to be at CRAD?
Yes.
Crad
Okay.
office.
What's the address there, Greg?
455 Boston Post Road.
Okay. Thank you.
Should I try to get George for that meeting? Do we want to get through what we want to get through first and have him at a later date?
It was a
Just
lot.
another time.
Well, I guess that depends on what the rest of the agenda looks like, David. Maybe we kind of leave that open.
Get our act together at this meeting, figure out where we want to go, and then after we get it thought through, have him overlaid onto what we're thinking.
Yeah, and David, you and I can kind of draft an agenda together and then we can socialize it with the rest of the group. And assuming we think there's sufficient time to have him with us, then we can do that. If not, if we have the workload that we think will take us the 4 hours, then we can save that for another time.
That's a plan. All right, so. So that's it. So experts, I guess at that point, we can also consider experts, other states, all of that, and then maybe, assuming George isn't there, then we'd follow up the next meeting that approach. All right, so then any other business before we convene?
So the only other business I would say, David, is to put into writing if that's you or Greg, but somebody put into writing exactly what it is that we're looking at from deep, so that we can get that to Trent to make an inquiry on our behalf.
So
And it's going to be a specific request to deep, right?
I think, why don't we figure out the date, what we want, what we want is, I think we agreed the monitoring well data, the down gradient, all monitoring well data related up gradient, down gradient, on what sites, on
Site specific.
5% of the sites, randomly
So
selected?
the state, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but they're actually monitoring, they've got somewhere over 400 sites in the state that they actually have jurisdiction over. So if you leave it to a number, I would give them number. Let's say you want 25 or 30 sites and spread around the state.
Yeah, I was
That's
just about to ask geographically. I mean, obviously, shoreline communities versus other areas of the state. I think you're going to want to have a diverse, geographically diverse sample,
Do it by
right?
county.
All right, well, hold on a minute. How about a different approach? Mark,
Yeah.
you said those are all, these are the DMRs that are all put in electronically. Why don't we
Right.
just ask for a data dump of all the DMRs for the last 2 years?
That's what usually that's the way I work on stuff. I want 2 years of data. So that's
Yeah,
8
so I'm saying,
reports.
why don't we ask Trent to go to the DEP and say, give us a data dump of your DMRs for the last
Right.
2 years? And then we simply get them on a thumb drive, because, I mean, it's also one of those things.
And that's where they are. You want the ones that are done electronically. I mean, you're not getting old data, so
Yeah,
that's
right.
the best way to do it. I mean,
But get a data dump and then we can look at it, and
you
get a
may
look
need
at
help
it
from,
instead of-
I agree. I mean, but you gotta, the whole thing with it is this, I've tried getting it before, and, you gotta put a FOIA request in.
Oh, we
Because
gotta
it's
wait for
protected against the
we have
permittee.
Yeah, right, Trenton.
There's no guarantee that I can get this information. Send me specifically what data you want in writing, because I'm gonna end up going to Deep and I'm gonna say, hey, these guys requested this, can you provide it? And they're gonna be like, sure, what data? Maybe they'll be like, sure, but they'll be like, what data specifically? So just to save me from having to go from them back to you guys, back to them, please send me specifically what you want.
It's a quarterly monitoring reports for subsurface disposal systems and
I would just give him an email that he can
Yeah,
forward.
just shoot me an email.
Okay.
Let's get that. We'll do that offline. We could circulate an email between all of us.
hey, I gotta run, believe it or not. I gotta go, believe it or not, I gotta get an MRI done on my knee.
Oh,
All right,
boy.
we're all out of here.
Okay,
All right, I'll make a motion.
All right.
Anybody second?
second.
Second.
Yeah, there you go. Great. Thanks,
All right,
guys.
thanks. See you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.